Welcome to Akhand Vidyashram, the first institute of impeccable wisdom. Let's discuss what ANAHATA Chakra, the endocrine gland, Thymus, and cell-mediated immunity. Let's start with something which I talk about it, a continuous of life. The first step in the process is reincarnation. When you reach a particular level of consciousness to Anahata Chakra, then you continue to take birth from there to higher and higher levels of consciousness. So reincarnation comes to play a role for a person who is reached a level to Anahata level in the previous life and then moved out to higher, and based on that the process starts. Now comes to the question, the first step, which is very, very important, is on Karma Yoga, the way you start your life before birth and during birth with the truth, conscientiousness and purity. If your parents are perfect and your mother is perfect, your birth is perfect, then continue to do the same thing truthfully, honestly with dharma, earth, calm, moksha, and karma would take you to higher and higher levels of consciousness as you move on in the life. The foundation has to be on Karma Yoga, a conscientiousness to be a perfect human being for yourself and the world as large. The second thing which comes to a very important role from my side, you got to have a devotion for the universal consciousness. Either you look at the universe which is formless, omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent as such, which is Nirankar, Nirgun, Brahman, or you take a deity of the God perception who is perfect in your opinion. Depending on what level you have reached, you will choose the God also accordingly. And as far as I am concerned, my Bhakti Yoga, devotion of divine nature, was Mata Vaishno Devi, whose incarnation of goddess Durga, that's a perfect living goddess who's taken birth in human form, who represents Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, Saraswati, Mahalakshmi, Mahakali, the three concepts of the entire generation of creation, maintenance, development, and sustenance and resolution of the entire universe right from human body onwards. So that way a choice of the deity is depends upon the level you have reached in your consciousness. Now the question is, the Bhakti Yoga and Karma Yoga will automatically lead you towards perfection of divine consciousness from my experience if both are perfect. And I have led to this stage over stages from childhood till 2015 to find Divyank, and this is a mathematical design, this is a symbol. As a result, all the deficiencies of knowledge by and large is very clear with Divyank, this mathematical design and the symbolic representation as such. Now move on to that. The awareness of Tantra Vidya, which is perfect human anatomy, physiology, biochemistry and psychology, appears as you proceed with Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, with Jnana Yoga as such. And the symbol Om you are seeing, the one which I designed more than 50 years ago, and the symbol which I started in 95, and this was done in 1920, 25, 30 years later. But all the universal representation of Brahman as well as Vedant is represented in this itself. Now come to the question of Kundalini. You are born with the Kundalini, every human being. That's the inner consciousness. The person who chooses to flow with inner consciousness would rise higher and higher. Who goes against it would go through the process of deficiencies and difficulties otherwise. There is an inner consciousness in everyone which takes you toward perfection. The one who's listening to that becomes like godly person. Person who does not listen to that goes through the process of deficiencies and suffers in the process. Satchitanand and Kalesha are centered on Kundalini alone. Now, chakras which move clockwise to increase and anti-clockwise to reduce. And there are 108 chakras. I agree, once you experience that and the association with endocrine gland and autonomic nervous system, which makes perfection inside, is something which has to be understood. Come to the questioner, there are three major nadis: Ida Nadi, Pingala Nadi, and Sushma Nadi. Ida Nadi and Pingala Nadi by and large are the left and right sympathetic system, and Sushma Nadi is an association of sympathetic, cranial parasympathetic and sacral parasympathetic, and the perfection by and large, and that is where Tantra talks about it. Now the first Muladhara chakra is where two chains meet at the bottom. This is the perfection in which the Kundalini goes to sleep and makes sure that you are perfectly healthy, wealthy, wise human being. Only in a dream stage in Muladhara, most of the wisdom also appears. Now then comes the Brahma Granthi is the first knot between Muladhara chakra and central canal with the spinal nerve, which is Brahma Nadi. Once this is broken, this internalization takes place. And then comes the next stage of Swadhisthana chakra, which is the sacral part, is the second. And this is where testosterone, estrogen comes, which has ojas for physical health as well as tejas for intelligence, intuition by and large. It moves on. This happens in every human being naturally. Then this is third stage is Nabhi chakra. Old pictures are there, and its association with adrenal gland will give you the power to maintain homeostasis completely. First three layers will give you water, sodium, potassium, glucose, and all the steroids required for immunity by and large. But as a final stage, medulla will give you sympathomimetic hormones, which will give you extra energy for evolution and all the work to be done. And person who has perfect this could be a perfect person, physical health, wealth, wisdom, happiness. There is no deficiency for that person who is very good in adrenal gland. Then this is the quality which you see, and we move on to the next stage. Then apana prana is the process of execution or expulsion of all the waste products with the body after digestion, utilization, otherwise. Normally it takes place in urine, fecal matter and menstrual cycle. But there is I3 Upanishad, which is a reflection of Rig Veda, which talks of apana prana as a receiver and giver both simultaneously. Unfortunately, that was not decoded anybody, and that is what I have spoken about it during infancy, during child growth itself. At 22 weeks, you can experience that. Once you experience that, your journey is much more conscious. Then come to Manipura chakra, which centers on digestion to bring nutrition for water, nutrients, everything. Once that is taken, your requirement of homeostasis becomes very, very centralized. And this is where all the digestion of carbohydrate, fats and protein takes place with exocrine, endocrine function of pancreas, liver and small intestines and stomach, etc. And this will give you the power of moving to the next stage with a peristaltic movement as such. And then comes the Vishnu Granthi from Manipura chakra to Ajna chakra. The movement can be upstep through the vagus nerve, left and right, you can see it. And that is what Kurma Nadi, that second block which has to be taken care of. First is the Brahma Granthi, is the Vishnu Granthi. This will give you divine devotion, and that is important for realizing that you are in tune with godly things, which could be Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, Saraswati, Mahalakshmi, Mahakali, Vaishno Devi, Durga, or whosoever God is. Depending upon what level you have reached, you will choose your God also according to automatically. Then in Manipura, this concentration is there, which gives you very devoted to God, Ishvara Pranidhana. Once you are in tune with that, you realize that a higher force is the one which is going to give you the knowledge. Books and other things are not going to give you knowledge. This experience will take you to the higher and higher levels of consciousness as you move on. Then the Anahata chakra is the one. Now I am coming to the main point of Anahata chakra. We are going to discuss that in systematically. And since I am talking about thymus gland, which is the endocrine gland, let's focus on that alone. Let's not talk of other things which I am going to talk about it in other headlines like mantra vidya, etc. later. But here focus is only on thymus gland, which is the endocrine gland, and this is Vayu or air element. Muladhara is the solid earth element. Swadhisthana is water element. Nabhi and Manipura are fire element. This is the fourth Vayu air element which is going to take place up, and that's very clear. And that is where immunity also comes. But now, as I told you, Muladhara chakra, there are 4 coccyx bones put together as one part, then 3 nerves from sacral 5 things, then 5 lumbar things. Now the 6 thoracic vertebrae, which are lower part, which have 12 nerves. So Anahata chakra has got 12 petals. Similarly, the lower Manipura chakra as the slower component of the thoracic 6, and this is upper. So the 12 vertebrae, 6 upper is Anahata, 6 lower is Manipura. Let that be clear. And this is where endocrine gland is thymus, which is for immunity, and there is a hormone thymulin or thymosin is also produced in thymus, and vagus nerve cranial parasympathetic is also centers around that. Sympathetic system, cardiac plexus also centers around that, which are very close associated with mind, moon, sun and other things, and also functions about lungs, heart as such. It is a lung, chest otherwise, and particularly here I am talking about thymus gland as such. Other thing we'll talk about it later. Now comes to the question of chakra as the science of endocrine gland. You have a chakra, Sat Chakra Nirupana picture, which is the picture from Sat Chakra Nirupana, which talks about 12 petals with the 12 names, and the center word is Yam. Bij mantra for Muladhara is Lam, Swadhisthana is Vam, Manipura and the thing is Ram, and Anahata it is Yam. And that's, you can see the whole thing, and you can see the 2 thymus glands which are there left and right in the mental, in the chest as such. Now I am giving the explanation of the thymus gland. Thymus gland's primary function is to produce and train T cells, which are essential for immune system ability to fight off infection and disease. And I make it B cells and T cells are the one which are essential for immunity. Without immunity, having control over infection and disease will not be there. It is said that thymus reduces air, but I am sure if you follow Akhand Yoga, you will have a very powerful thymus even in your 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s and 100 also. It will not die on them because it has the complete blood supply there is maintained, provided you are leading a perfectly healthy life with a pure vegetarian, no infection, no disease, no alcohol, no drugs, nothing at all, which I can't produce iatrogenic, you should be avoided. That's it. So these thymus glands are specialized white cells mature in thymus, learning to identify and eliminate harmful pathogens. Now it's coming that blood cells, white blood cells come to play a role. Thymus also produces hormones that support the immune system, which I told you, thymin and otherwise. Unfortunately, thymus decides with age, which is not true if you are a perfectly healthy person following Kundalini Yoga or Akhand Yoga completely. Now let's say the definition of immunity. There are 3 levels. There is non-specific defense mechanism and specific defense are the 2 things. In the non-defense, first line of defense is skin itself protects you from outside. It's a big barrier. Mucous membrane in the nose and otherwise is another defense mechanism. I have suffered from nasal congestion since my childhood, and I did 3 years post graduation ENT to get rid of my cold. It did not work, but today I don't have. Now I realize mucous membrane in the nose or stomach or everything is a barrier to protect you the internal organs. Skin outside, which can give you light also. Mucous membrane protects you, and secretions of skin and mucous membrane also are protecting you. This is the first line of defense. And this will be perfect as long as you are not indulging any medicine which is counterproductive. And I make it very clear, pure vegetarian, herbal things, perfectly one, which keep skin intact, mucous membrane intact, all these hormone import has to be emphasized on, and you can experience that. Second line of defense is a phagocytic white blood cells. Now coming to white blood. Then antimicrobial proteins and inflammatory response. Body can produce all the response for anti-inflammatory. You don't need to take medicines provided you are not taking anything unnecessarily. Your system can produce it, and that is what leads to perfect healthy life. I am nearing 73 plus, but I do not need any medicine. I do not take, and I'm happy, and I only do what herbs or vegetarian food suits me. I take it, and everything I've realized has its specific affection, and I'm doing it. Specific defense mechanism is third line of defense. Their lymphocytes and antibodies produced within the body can protect you for that. And this is what I learned. If your immune system is good, you are getting a perfect antibodies, you will not suffer come what may. Even COVID-19, everybody was suffering, and I did not need anything, and absolutely fine. And these are the three things which I have spoken about it right at the bottom too. And if this is done, you will be perfectly healthy, wealthy, wise and happy being. Immunity cannot be put under the carpet. This is what the blood comes to play a role. RBCs give you oxygen, we will talk about it later, but this WBC is responsible for that. And there are different cells of WBC which we are going to talk about, and what is their function in immunity and defense mechanism. Now comes the leukocytes, the white cells. These are the ones which are right at the bottom. You can see you have basophils, eosinophils, neutrophils, which are granulocytes, and agranulocytes are lymphocytes and monocytes. Now we are going to see about each, what role do they play in defense mechanism. Now comes the neutrophil cells. The nucleus is present and number of cell is 61.803%. That is Devian's dynamic thing. And it's called polymorphs also. Neutral means neutral, no other color, and there are many cells. Diameter is 12 micron, young horse-shaped things. There are 5 lobes fitted with thing. This is again according to defense mechanism of Panchabhutas. Now granules are sulfates, phosphates, nucleus, oxides. All the things are produced in neutrophils which can kill all the organism, even defective ingredients which could lead to problems. They can all be. Phagocyte is the first line of defense which is within neutrophils. Marginalization, typing, these are the different stages which work. At the result, whole thing is degraded over a period. You're going to see that. And this is the phagocytic stage. The microorganism is getting inside, gets into neutrophils. How it is divided with the help of limestones and other things. At the end, whole thing is dissolved and thrown out as a dust, as a thing. And this neutrophil itself can do all the good work for a defense mechanism. And this is according to Diving 61.8034%. Now comes the eosinophil counts are the pink color. They are 3% and they are acidic cytoplasm, and they are responsible for allergic. Anyone who have allergy to dust or even parasites or otherwise would have eosinophil count, and it could be eosinophilia. Provided it's around 3%, it will make sure that it can function objectively, but it has also vigosynthesis, can act on larvae, parasite and release hydrolytic enzymes, and can produce a form of oxygen to kill organisms within. It is very essential, but too much of it can give you eosinophilia, can also be responsible for asthmatic occurrence or congestion by and large. Lungs. Now the basophil are the third cells as such. Granulocyte. I am not talking of agranulocyte. is a 4, 2 lobes you can see, and these are the ones which are responsible for allergic reaction, mild allergic reaction, and they play a very role for this, but the percentage is only 1%, not more than that, and they are the larger cells, can work as a bigger cells to produce even more energy, and they are responsible viral infection, allergic reactions, and chronic myeloid leukemia, etc. And basophilia due number can have a steroids and many other problems. So these cells play a big role in long-term immunity by and large. Neutrophils immediate, eosinophil in allergic, and this is hypersensitive, allergic, and also anything which comes from inside. Now come to the cell, agranulocyte, the monocyte, the big cells, 6%. Diameter is 22 million. And they are the nuclear kidney shaped, 40%. Just like I would say 40%, nucleus could be 38.1966%, and prime function is defense mechanism, tumor immunity, blood monocytosis, and many other things. They go in the blood for 72 hours, do all the cleansing part by us. So that means the blood, B cells, and further you're going to see cells, how effectively they work in your immunity. They all center around Anahata chakra only. Then comes the lymphocyte, another thing, and how they are produced in bone marrow as such, and how they go to lymph nodes and produce B cells and go to thymus, as you can see, and how these things take place and finally come to lymph nodes, and whole thing is eliminated beautifully by eliminating all the infection within. So both immune and cell mediated thing comes here only. Thymus plays a T cells cell mediated as such. I think this representation is very good in the present. Now how the lymphatic nodes go around in the body, I have shown that, including spleen and thymus, and this is where the whole concentration of parasites, allergies, and all the things which could be damaging, which can require a defense mechanism, center on the lymphatic system as such. This is second parallel to venous return as such. Parallel to that, this goes outside the blood system, not inside the blood system. Blood system is blood in arteries is flows from heart to other things, is what arteries are all about. It's a blood from heart outside which is pure, and then you have capillaries where exchange takes place and things come back in the venous. But all the sites which are big and damaged, which go outside the capillaries, and that is a bigger, not cannot come back to these capillaries, can filter only up to 4 micron size, only one way traffic of only things. Larger RBCs and proteins do not come. The protein things which are broken down outside, they go in the lymphatic system to lymph nodes and finally come to circulation after purity as such. I think that is a beautiful secondary defense mechanism of lymphatic system. Now there comes to question of 5 different types of immunoglobulins are. I am not going into details of this. This is very intensive, but these are the ones which work on different processes and give you the defense mechanism, long and short by and large. Everything is covered in this 5 itself. And allergic reaction is where IgEs come to play. Now the immunoglobulin response, how it goes, what different thing is given in this picture very clearly. Someone who wants to read can stick to this and see all the process of immunization which take place. This is a beautiful picture taken from Google and all different people by and large. Now come to the immunological response. Now I am making one thing very clear. First reaction when allergy gets in, it produces the response of antibodies in the body. First infection or tetanus toxoid or immunoglobulin given to that produce a response. But you need one more dose to give you long-term memory. And once that is come, that is the reason when you take toxin injections or COVID vaccine, you need one dose. After maybe 21 days or 1 month, you need to take another dose after 28 days. And this particular thing is after 21 days you must take, preferably, and 28 days you take, and the reaction will be much more, and that last will much longer thereafter. So 2 doses of the vaccine are required, and thankful this is how we have followed. And how things move on, I think, is given very clearly in this particular thing. Now, in this particular thing, I am making it very clear. Thymus, the endocrine gland, you have thyroid gland and intergland. This cell mediated thing. Yolk cells produce stem cells, fetal cells produce it, bone marrow produces, stem cells produces, stem cell in thymus, this goes on. B cells to T cells, how in a fetus, yolk cell, fetal cells, then bone marrow, and how in adult from periphery go to the center, and then this is how it goes, and that is exactly what is with Anahata chakra as such. I think once that is, and final erective clarification or detoxification takes with the spleen, which is a dissolution, and once that happens, you are perfectly healthy, wealthy, wise, and happy. And I think this is where Anahata chakra, particularly thyroid, thymus gland, with all the hormones and other things, plays very important role. Let's take that this aspect of Anahata chakra only with endocrine thymus by and large, and we should maintain it, other thing, by leading a perfectly life without even single thing which can be iatrogenic. And I make it again and again. Anything which is non-vegetarian, alcoholic, drugs, or other thing which reduces sensitivity of sensory and motor component and immunity is destructive. You can get everything to the vegetarian herbs itself to make sure, and through trial and error you can make sure that with it. I, in the last 30 years, I've been doing research. I've been experimenting with food alone, and I find at 73 plus, my biology, psychology, anatomy, physiology is as perfect as when I was 21. If I can do it, I'm sure everybody can do it. Now come to the last. I'm not going to talk much more. I think enough that we are making it smaller, small. Let it be like. Thank you very much.